All right. Thanks, lady. All right. So yesterday we finished the class by watching the video on gerrymandering. And just sort of, to go over what gerrymandering is again, this is sort of one of the congressional behaviors, is why it's included in with this topic. Imagine that because of the way the party in control of their state's government redrew the congressional district they reside in, their preferred party will never win that district's House of Representatives seat. We're not going to do breakout rooms. I normally would do breakout rooms, but just we'll be on here for now. We can answer these questions together. Okay. So remember, gerrymandering is where you can redraw those district lines, right? So let's say Pennsylvania has 18 districts represented in it. Okay. We go through the census, and we just did in 2020. It's every 10 years. The next one will be 2030. So we go through the census, and then so let's say we discover through the apportionment process, we discover that the population increased in Pennsylvania that warrants us gaining another district. Okay, so let's say now it has to go to 19 districts. Well, they have to now redraw the boundary lines in Pennsylvania to include 19 districts. Well, that gives the opportunity for the party in charge, okay, to the legislature to draw these boundaries in certain ways. Now, there are some rules. They just can't do whatever they want. Okay, it has to be contiguous, as we're going to learn through the Baker versus Carr, meaning that it has to be attached. You can't say, okay, this district 12 is a portion over here, and then there's another district, and then district 12 happens again over here. No, it has to be contiguous. The land has to be connected somehow. Okay, so, but of course, and this is not a partisan issue needing only one party does this. Both parties do this, and they gerrymander. And of course, you're going to draw the boundary lines in ways that are going to benefit your party the most and are going to gain the most seats in the House of Representatives. Because as we know, not only does that give you a stronger voice in laws that are written, but it also gives you an advantage in the Electoral College. Okay. All right. So let's pick it up right from there. That's kind of what we talked about yesterday. So how might that change the likelihood that they will vote, and why? All right. So again, you're going to write your response on the right-hand side there. So again, you're imagining that because of the way the party in control of their state's government redrew the congressional district they reside in, their preferred party will never win that district's House of Representatives seat. So how might that change the likelihood that they will vote? Like if you live, let's say Bensalem is in a district, let's say it's heavily, I'll just pick one. Let's say it's heavily Democrat, right? So no matter, you're a Republican in Bensalem, no matter if you go vote or not, because of the way that our district is drawn, and I'm just making this up, by the way, in terms of, I'm not saying this is how Bensalem is, but just to give you an idea of how to think about it, okay? Let's say you're a Republican, right? And you are in a district where it's drawn that there are more Democrats than Republicans. Are you likely to go out and vote on an election day? You're going to write your response. So I'm going to give you a second on the right-hand side there of, how would it change, the likelihood that you'll vote and why? You might still say, yeah, man, I'm voting. I'm participating in the process. Now, of course, presidential is going to matter more, but let's say for local elections, in our case in Bensalem, the mayor is Republican. And let's say Bensalem leans a little more Republican in terms of the numbers of people here. You're a Democrat. Are you going to go vote for mayor? Assuming that people are going to vote their party lines, or are you just going to go, oh, well, I can't, Republican's going to win just because, it's more Republican in our district? Is that going to affect your decision to vote or not? And of course, why? And then you can go on to the next bullet point. What if your preferred party was almost certain to win? How might that change your decision to vote, and why? You can make this like about you. I know it says there, like you're this hypothetical person, but you can make it about you. So let's change that decision around. Let's say it's a Republican mayor, and let's say it's more Republican majority in Bensalem. Let's say is Republican, but you are a Republican. You got to decide take off time from work to go vote? Well, you know that majority of people in Bensalem, let's say, are Republican. As a Republican, do you just go, yeah, we're good? Republican mayor's going to win again, just because, you know, I don't need to take off time off of work. That could be your answer, or it could be, no, this is important to me. I want to make sure my vote and my voice is counted. And then lastly, would either of these situations benefit democracy? Think about what democracy is. We're battling that right now in our current reliving of the election of November 3rd, and it's December 1st. You want a democracy? Well, if you want a democracy, everybody gets a vote. If you believe in a democracy, one person, one vote. Doesn't matter who you are, what color you are, whether you're male or female, transgender, doesn't matter. You're a human, you're born in the United States, you're a citizen, you get a voice. All right, let's open that up to just a little discussion. Anyone want to share? So if you, let's say you were on the other side of this, right? Would you go out and vote? If you knew your party had no chance of winning, do you still go out and vote? How many people said, yeah, I'm still going to go out and vote? Anyone want to share their thoughts? Come on, I'm a lonely man standing in an empty classroom in the dark.
I said I would still vote.
Excellent. Is Brianna?
You know it is.
That's right. I'd recognize that voice. Good, Brianna. So you would still vote, right? Because you're like, I'm participating in the process. Plus, hey, maybe you never know, right? But if I don't vote, well, then I can't be counted. So I like that. That's a good attitude to have. However, I'm not going to say anyone's wrong to say, I'm not taking off work for that, because in our country, for whatever reason, we don't vote on the weekend. We decide to vote on a work day, and we make the hours literally during the workday. So you have to decide to either get up really early or go vote after work and stand in long lines. And you might just go, I ain't doing that. We're going to win anyway, or we're not going to win. All right. What if your party was certain to win? Like, my party's going to win. I know it. This is the voting history of our area. We don't live, let's say my town isn't a swing town, meaning sometimes it's Republican, sometimes it's Democrat. All right. Are you going to stay home? Anyone just going to stay home, not take time off of work? Or is everyone still going to go, nope, I'm still going to go. I want to vote.
I'd probably still go.
Good. And listen, I love hearing that from you guys, because you're like 16, 17 years old. You have never voted yet. So I would hope all of you, quite honestly, are like, no, man, I'm voting. I've never voted before. Of course, why would I not vote? So it's interesting if we asked your parents these same questions, and maybe you guys can do that. Ask your parents if they would still vote or not, because they voted a lot in their lives. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. Mayor, we're going to win or we're not going to win. My guy's not going to get in or my girl's going to get in. All right. Now, let me ask you, do either one of these situations benefit democracy? Do you think gerrymandering benefits democracy? Anybody? Selena, you're out there. I'm just going to start calling names out. Don't be shy, guys. Even if you say a wrong answer, I won't publicly mock you.
I don't think that it benefits a democracy, because I feel like the gerrymandering, like they think, like they already feel that they have like the prediction of what it's going to be. So not everyone feels the need to vote, and then the democracy, like one person, one vote. I just don't think that that's going to happen with the gerrymandering.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone agree or disagree? Any other viewpoints, or want to add to that, to Selena's response? Because what's the point of gerrymandering in the first place, right? It's to influence way votes are going to go. whether it's good or bad, right? I'm either gerrymandering because I want to improve my party's chances of winning or my stronghold on winning, or I want to lessen the way I gerrymander is I lessen. Maybe when I redesign this district 19, okay, and redesign all the lines, I'm going to be able to take a district that was prominently, let's say that was normally Democrat, and let's say I'm going to redraw it in a way that all of a sudden flips that district to Republican, right? So you can gerrymander you kind of both ways. You can gerrymander to strengthen a stronghold that you have, right? They're called safe seats in the House of Representatives. There are seats, guys and gals, that have stayed Republican and Democrat for decades, like for decades. Now imagine that. With all the stuff that's happened in this country, there are certain seats in the House that have been Democrat forever, that have been Republican forever. So when we go through these 2-year elections, most people will say every 2 years, there's only about 70 to 75. Now think about that. There's 435 seats in the House of Representatives. Okay. People, generally 180 on each side is going to stay the same. Republican or Democrat. It's staying in a Republican seat or it's staying in a Democratic seat. So that really means every 2 years, there's really only 75 seats up for grabs. Okay, not 435, because these seats are, they're called safe seats. This district has voted Democrat since the day we even started counting this. Okay, or voted Republican. So I just wanted you guys to understand that. All right, excellent. Moving on. So we're going to hit one more thing on gerrymandering. Now, I just skipped a slide. You'll notice, hey, Mr. Lee, you just skipped a slide. This is something you're going to do on your own. Okay, you're going to fill this in. You don't need me to walk you through that. Obviously, you can see what the directions are. It's very, very easy to do what that is asking you to do. All right, so we're going to jump on to the next slide here, slide 6, and we're going to watch this article. And what it's just basically asking you is, we're going to watch the video together, and then you're going to type in down here, what surprised you in the video, if anything surprised you. Okay, this is just another example. How does this image above show gerrymandering in action? Okay, you're gonna have to examine this. So I'm gonna give you a second, actually. I don't want to just blow through this because this is important. See if I can blow it up for you a little bit more on your screen. And you can obviously blow it up on your screen. So by just looking at this picture, sorry. All right, how anyone just by taking a gander, you can see how it's drawn up. How does this image above show gerrymandering in action? Is there a district that sticks out to you that looks like, that's a creative boundary?
4.
Number 4, yeah. Number 4 is definitely like, oh, okay, I got you. So, think about it. Look at this. So if you're in District 2, you live here, your neighbor is in District 4, and then all the way across, District 2 starts again. I wonder wonder why they drew it that way. Well, because District 4 goes a certain way all the time. It's going to be, this is just like sort of a snapshot. I don't even know whose it is. It could be Republican, Democrat, but that's District 4 is drawn that way on purpose. So how about another one? Anyone see another one that looks like, holy crap?
I think that's pointing to 12.
Yeah, look at 12. All right. It's like, why is this little area? Can you guys see that as my mouse coming through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is, like, look, it's in the middle of 6. Like, here's 6. This large area. This little swath is District 12. You are surrounded by District 6. Obviously, those lines are drawn that way for a reason, because that's picking up votes for District 12, which keeps District 12 Republican or Democrat, whatever it happens to be. Do you see how this works? Do you see how, some of you might kind of be annoyed by it, that this is even allowed to happen? Because it's not technically illegal until it is. And we're going to learn about exactly how to do that. All right, here we go. What surprised you in the video? So that's what you're looking for. It's like, I think 11 minutes long. I just want to make sure you guys can hear it. I got a whole kind of setup in here in this class. I think it starts as an ad and it's not YouTube, so I can't. As you can see, our Wi-Fi is really fast today. Oh, I got to do this. Don't worry, it's an ad. You're not missing anything. You guys can't hear anything, can you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Always fun.
No.
Sorry, I'll fix it in a second. Interesting. All right. Stay tuned.
Technical difficulties, please stand by.
Mr. Lee,
Yeah.
you can click the speaker button on the video.
Oh, is that muted? Tell me I went through all that.
It's next.
Why in the world? Thank you for that. That's like ridiculous. Why would that even be muted? The reason I say that is I was watching it beforehand and that was not muted. So that's interesting. All right. So let's try to go back to the configuration. You guys still good? You can hear?
Yeah, now we can.
All right. Sorry about that.
Gerrymandering. It has a surprising history and an uncertain future as the nation awaits a ruling by the Supreme Court.
What it has become to me is districts that I don't like because somebody else ruled.
The former steel town of Tarentum in western Pennsylvania is a mix of working-class Republicans and Democrats. Former Congressman Jason Altmaier says that's given him a close-up view of how gerrymandering works.
When I was in office, if you lived in this house, you were my constituent. But if you lived on this side, your congressman was 60 miles away in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. It's a small town. They're in the same school district. They're one community, except for the fact they were represented by two different members of Congress.
In the decade after each new census, states redraw their congressional and legislative districts. The party in power, whether Republican or Democrat, typically draws maps to protect its own members.
Well, if you're right there on that line and that border, and it's a crazy district, it can become very confusing.
Gerrymandering isn't a partisan problem. We see this in other states like Maryland, where it's been the Democrats in power, and the Democrats drawing them out to essentially marginalize Republican power.
Gerrymandering doesn't just determine how many Democrats and Republicans will serve. It determines what kind of Democrats and Republicans. It contributes to polarization. It makes the more liberal Democrats more likely to win. It makes the more conservative Republicans more likely to win, and they are less likely to cooperate with each other, and that gets us to the politics we have.
If you're a member of Congress representing that type of district, you don't.
Okay, so I just want to point that out because that was a very important point that he just made. Why it seems that politics have become more partisan, right? Because of gerrymandering, it enables this ability for a person, let's say, who's a Democrat, who is more liberal to get elected. It allows, it encourages the behavior for a Republican, let's say, who is more conservative to be more conservative. So what ends up happening is, because these districts sort of vote this specific way, I'm very Democrat, I'm very Republican, it creates these candidates who are very far left or very far right. Well, of course, when these people then have to get into Congress and work together, because let's face it, what is Congress supposed to do? Congress has to compromise, all right? It is this sort of system that a lot of people feel are out of control because it keeps producing candidates that are so far to the left or so far to the right that it leaves out all the people who really are kind of center thinking people, and they may just lean a little bit left, or they just may lean a little bit right, or they lean left or right depending on the issue that we're talking about. Okay, so you have these people now, these elected representatives who want to keep getting elected every 2 years. All right, when we're talking about the House of Representatives, they want to keep getting elected. So obviously they're going to do what they think their base wants, right? So you have these polar opposite viewpoints all of a sudden having to work together and come up with a compromise. And it would be much easier to come up with compromising if you had two people, even if they're on either side of the aisle, but they start with more common ground, they're more likely to compromise. I mean, that's almost just sort of common sense. So when people ask, well, why is it so political today, and why are politics the way they are? Well, gerrymandering is a big part of the reason for that. It is creating more liberal Democrats. It's creating more conservative, alt-right sort of conservative Republicans. And now you have this large part of the population who's like, man, I don't identify kind of with any of this. I don't agree with this, and I don't agree with that. Where's my party? Any thoughts or feelings on that from the peanut gallery? Meaning you people? Agree, disagree, don't know? Why are you all so shy? You can still hear me, yes? You're not all asleep?
We can hear you.
Okay, did I just make such great points that you have no comments?
I think the middle ground this election, though, was Kanye.
Kanye, yeah, there you go. He's definitely very rational and sane. All right, on that note, let's continue the video.
Hear different points of view. You own a town hall meeting and all you ever hear is right on, keep doing what you're doing, and don't you dare compromise. Both parties have long played the redistricting game, but today's hard-fought battles have their origins 30 years ago, when the Supreme Court rendered a decision that upended the political landscape.
And in one unanimous decision today, the court said that North Carolina's redistricting plan violated the 1982 Voting Rights Act by reducing black voting power.
The court ruled that under the Voting Rights Act, minority groups should have the opportunity to elect their preferred candidates to Congress. The remedy? New majority-minority districts, where minority residents of voting age made up more than 50% of the population.
In several states, new snake-like district lines were drawn, linking together small pockets of black voters.
I feel like things are changing in the right direction. Just wanted to hello to you. I'd like to come with you.
In the 1992 elections, the new majority-minority districts achieved their goal, and 17 new black representatives were elected to Congress.
The new Congress looks more like America than any other Congress in history.
Hello, America.
One of them was a North Carolina lawyer and activist named Eva Clayton.
1901 to 1992. No Afro-American had ever represented North Carolina. So that was a beautiful historical moment. We too sing America. I felt privileged, I felt honored, and I felt humbled and blessed.
But for the Democrats, who still controlled the redistricting process, there was a price to pay. By packing black voters into a limited number of districts, there were fewer Democrats everywhere else, and Republicans saw an opportunity to divide and conquer.
Let me tell you that the Voting Rights Act has the potential to really shake things up and frankly
Democrats very quickly, the Republican Politico has figured out that if you drew 3 minority majority districts, it meant that there were 3 incredibly Democrat districts, which meant there were more Republicans in the other 8 or 10 districts.
So the Republicans went to the African American community, largely Democratic, and said, let's make a deal.
South Carolina, blacks and Republicans are already talking about a crescent-shaped district through the southern part of the state.
The alliance, when it comes to redistricting between the Republicans, mostly in the South, and the African Americans, mostly in the South, has been called the unholy alliance. Certainly the Republicans knew what they were doing. The first sign of what a big deal the unholy alliance was the 1994 election.
We will keep our commitment to keep our half of the contract with the help of the American people. The new wind blowing, and it is a majority of the Republicans.
You saw the white Democrats in the South losing seat after seat.
Voters sweep Democrats from power in midterm elections and give Republicans control of the House and Senate for the first time in 40 years.
So it's an irony. More African-American districts meant less Democrats were elected.
I don't think the African American community was out to destroy the Democratic Party, but they were out to get the representation they thought they were entitled to. What happened was it led to complete Republican dominance of virtually every state south of the Mason-Dixon line.
So it's sort of like taking our fight against racism and the advancements we made and the laws we've used and literally turning them around on their head and saying, these are the laws you want and you fought for, fine. We're going to implement them 150% and see if you like that.
Angela Bryant served in the North Carolina legislature from one of the carefully drawn majority-minority districts.
On the left side is in my district, one of the few trailer parks still in the city.
The lines can get complicated, even for a seasoned legislator.
So I'm gonna stop here and get my bearings. This road is sort of a boundary. And this is what I can tell, these are in or out. It always bothered me in terms of gerrymandering, that there was what I call a finger that scooped down into what was otherwise my district, that interrupted the compactness and scooped out the wealth of your household, which are more white and Republican. In a micro sense, both me and my community benefited from the racial gerrymander in that I got to represent them. However, in the big sense, it rendered us powerless in that the surrounding white communities and representatives didn't need us. And they could label our party as the Black Party.
Having lost their...
Okay, so I'm just checking in on you guys, just to see if you're really following along and understanding what's happening here. So realize that in the Voting Acts, right, of 1965, that we're going to get to in the future when we talk about, the Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Unit, many of these things start out as good intentions and they have unintended consequences after the fact, right? So, North Carolina saw this problem. We don't have any Black representation at all. Every person who's representing a district in North Carolina is white and has been for a very, very, very long time. We never had a Black person as a representative. So they sought out to try to fix that and go, okay, well, how can we get Black representation in the House of Representatives? And the thought was, well, by being able to redistrict and drawing lines in these sort of convoluted ways, you put more pockets of African Americans together in the same district, even though they're really, really spread out over the area of the state. You're going to get a Black representative because, obviously, someone who is, a Black voter in that district is going to most likely vote for a Black candidate. So that solves the problem. We will get some Black candidates. We will get some Black representation. Problem solved. However, it created a different problem because by being able to gerrymander in that way, it created these other pockets of wealthy white communities who now, of course, were more likely voting Republican. So it took large amounts of people who normally vote Democrat out of areas, okay, that the representative from that area would have had to be accountable to them. But because they were sort of taken out of that area, okay, then the representative of this largely white, wealthy area is not beholden to anyone who's black in the state. Do you see how that makes any sense? So it's like we gained, and there was in the 80s, there was finally this sort of surge of minority representation in the House, okay, which was predominantly white for our history. But it created these unintended consequences where it gave Republicans dominance in the South, and white representatives no longer were beholden to their normally large black contingent. In other words, if I had a large, at least black community in my district, even though it was mostly white, I still have to listen to the concerns of that black population. I still have to be accountable to them. Well, now you're sort of taking that responsibility away from me. I don't even have to worry about that now. I can focus exclusively on my constituents who are predominantly white and wealthy. Okay, that doesn't mean there aren't poor white people, of course, in the South. There's lots of poor white people too, okay? But it just sort of created this dominance for the Republican Party. You guys understand? Anyone need me to kind of go over that again, or you get the gist?
No, I'm good.
Does that make sense to you how I explained it?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Again, you might need to sit with this for another minute. You might need to, rewatch certain things. The review videos are good. A lot of these concepts that we cover in here, guys, are not concepts that you necessarily are going to get the first time that you're reading or hearing about it. So I always want to stress that to you. Don't feel like you're lost because you don't fully understand something. This stuff is not easy. Okay, it's actually quite complicated and nuanced. All right, let's finish it up.
For voting strength, Democrats are now running up against the reality that Republicans are firmly in control of map making in a majority of states.
The map drawers create a map which is perhaps likely to elect 10 Republicans and 3 Democrats. I acknowledge freely that this would be a political gerrymandering, which is not against the law.
Right, so there's like, that's political gerrymandering, as we're going to learn. Political, if it's done for political reasons, giving your party an advantage politically, power, then it's not illegal. We're going to find out where it does become illegal when you gerrymander based on race. That is going to get struck down by the Supreme Court, and we're going to learn about that in Shaw versus Reno, which is the other case that is included with Baker and Carr. Shaw and Reno, these are 2 cases that really deal with gerrymandering, and they have opposite outcomes, and they both use the same amendment essentially in the Constitution to defend one case and to overturn another one. All right. So yeah, now that once you got control, as we learned, whoever controls the state legislature, so in Pennsylvania, who's the state legislator control body? You guys know, Republicans or Democrats? Our state legislature in Pennsylvania. So who's our governor?
Isn't it Tom Wolf?
Tom Wolf. Is he a Republican or Democrat?
Democrat.
He's a Democrat. And obviously so is the lieutenant governor because they run on the same John Fetterman. All right, so our governor of Pennsylvania and our lieutenant governor are Democrats, okay? What about our state legislature, our state senate, our state house? Who's the dominant party there? Anyone know? It's very red. Republicans dominate the state legislature in Pennsylvania. Okay, so the lawmaking body in Pennsylvania right now is Republican controlled. Okay, so this is one of the big issues over the mail-in ballots that you may or may not have been, if you've been following the election and all the silliness that's happened after the election. All right, the state legislature, Republicans decided in Pennsylvania. So for everyone who was frustrated that it took so long to count the votes in Pennsylvania and in other states that did mail-in votes, the reason why is because the Republican legislature did not want the votes to be counted early. In other words, Pennsylvania could have had permission to start counting votes as soon as they received them, right? And we would have known the results of the presidential election on election night. Okay, but the strategy, and again, this is political strategy. The strategy was that the Republican legislature knew that Democrats will be the ones who, in our current political climate, Democrats will be the ones who will follow the advice of wearing masks. Democrats will be the ones who stay home. Democrats are going to be the ones who will take advantage of voting by mail because they don't want to risk going to the polling place and getting themselves exposed or exposing them to somebody else. More Democrats will follow that. So they didn't want the votes to be counted early. They wanted because they knew that the election day would most likely be Republicans coming out, going to the polls. So by the close of the polls in Pennsylvania, it would show that Trump was in a commanding lead in Pennsylvania, giving the appearance that, well, he's not going to lose Pennsylvania because he's ahead by 80,000 votes. And so it was. But they purposely did not allow mail-in votes to be counted early because they wanted that appearance of Pennsylvania being won by Trump. And then they knew that after a couple days of counting votes, they're going to be mostly Democratic. All of a sudden, you're going to see Joe Biden is going to chip away at that lead. And as we know, he chipped away at it and then went really past it. Okay? Given this sort of illusion of impropriety, given this illusion of voter fraud. This is where this all sort of comes from, right? Well, the state legislature has that power. So the Republicans are in control. So let's say we win, Pennsylvania wins another district. We win another, an allotment of another, I shouldn't say another district, another seat in the House of Representatives. Remember, there's only 435. Okay, we don't ever increase that number. It just, those seats get flipped around to states. Some gain some lose some based on the census. So if the Republican legislature gets the opportunity to redraw the district, how do you think they're going to redraw the districts in Pennsylvania? Right? They're the ones in charge. They're obviously going to redraw districts in Pennsylvania that are going to benefit the Republican Party. And listen, Democrats would do the exact same thing in this situation. So it's not a partisan thing. It's not, oh, the Republicans do this, oh, only the Democrats do this. Whoever's in power is, and this is true through human history, who's ever in power is going to try to stay in power. Okay? People don't like to give up power at all. Does that make sense? Yes? No?
Yeah.
All right. It's like I said, this stuff is messy. It's a little bit complicated, but that's okay. You guys are getting better at this. You're getting better at understanding this. All right. So what I want you to do, because we're almost up on time. This is over at 10:19. We're done in 2 minutes. I'm really taking my time through this. And I'm hoping that you're getting a lot from this. I'm hoping that, rather than just assigning you to read something and watch videos, it's very difficult for me to ascertain if you are understanding this stuff or not. So I'm purposely taking a little bit more time. And quite honestly, I think these things are more interesting and you're going to learn more this way than just simply reading a chapter from the book. Would you guys agree or disagree?
Agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Are you learning more this way than just, reading and taking notes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. And I know reading and taking notes is not the most fun thing in the world to do. And now, of course, having said that, I am going to start assigning some more readings because I want to at least get that stuff covered. But we're gonna tomorrow is current events, so just log on tomorrow, Wednesday, current events. Say hello, hi, I'm here, and then I'm gonna release you. What you're gonna do tomorrow is between today and tomorrow, current events, and I want you to finish this particular slide deck. All you have left is the Baker versus Carr, where you're gonna write, is it Baker or is it Carr? By watching the video, it's gonna completely tell you how to do it. All right, and then we'll go over the answers on Thursday. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we'll go over the answers on Thursday. So finish it, submit it, either tonight or tomorrow. We'll go over it on Thursday, and then we'll jump right into the other Supreme Court case from this unit, which is Shaw versus Reno. And then we'll see where that takes us by Friday. Okay, guys, awesome job. I hope you learned something today, and I'll check in with you guys again tomorrow.
Bye, Mr. Lay.
Bye.
Bye.
Later. Are you still there, Emily, or did you fall asleep?